Hi. So I'm Jamie, and I am a lead UX designer here at TotallyMoney. So my talk today is about, I guess we decided on the topic of who owns the experience when everyone is user-centered. And essentially it's about our experience and our challenges of trying to establish UX within an existing kind of startup. Or not startup, we're a scale-up. But I guess the difference for us is that we're already a customer-centric scale-up. And I think it seemed to be a relevant topic for us from our own experience, and also from like when I was been talking to friends in the industry. Everyone seems to be having some kind of form of battle with some department, I won't name names, or some client, and it generally seems to result from a form of like miscommunication or a lack of collaboration. So this is something that's relevant in terms of what we're going through. I hope it resonates with some of you. I guess a disclaimer is that we haven't solved anything yet, but we're working there, and these are some of the things that we've tried. So we'll be going through, I guess, part one. There's a few parts here. So we're going to first of all start off by looking at our journey. So who is TotallyMoney, where are we from? We'll be looking at the problem space, and for us it's about design being perceived to be at the surface. We'll be having a look at like doing collaboration and how that's helping us dig a bit deeper and get under the surface. And then kind of where the future is and what we're hoping to where we're hoping to get. So, part one of the background. So TotallyMoney, we are a product-led scale-up. We've had a few kind of iterations. Our CPO likes to call them like TotallyMoney 1.0 and 2.0 because it's product, right? And so we started life in 2009 as a financial kind of like a comparison website. And we were like very transaction focused, I guess, is the main point from this. It was all about like getting people to the site and converting, and then it didn't matter about a relationship with them because it was all about how we measured success in that way. In 2011, we started moving towards a bit more of a customer-centric view, so looking at like eligibility checking and helping solve a need at the time. We started being a little bit more or a little bit less transaction focused, but still very transitory. And our main kind of change as a company was in 2017 when we launched the free credit report. And that like changed the whole shape of the company and like where we were going and the kind of things that we were trying to measure. So we moved from being very transaction focused to being like an engagement focused business, and like starting to measure things like lifetime value and how we create a relationship with people along the way. So what does this kind of mean in practice, right? We started off 2017, we had absolutely no customers, we didn't have the concept of an account, and we've gone to like 2.5 million in 2 years, which is like mental. We kind of had a very steady growth of like employees, and then all of a sudden we've like ballooned and we're like growing 50% year on year. We're at a point I think we're going to reach 90 by the end of this year if we fill all of our roles. And I think what this means is that we're moving from in a short space of time from this place where as a company we had like this idea of like family huts and everybody kind of knew what was going on all of the time. And in a very short space of time we moved to this place where actually there's a lot more like hierarchy involved, there's a lot more kind of communication or deliberate communication that needs to happen for people to understand what's going on. And interestingly, our composition has changed too, right? So we started 2016. We didn't have product as a department or a discipline, and like over time, the purple one is product. I've got a pointer actually. So you can see how like the shape of the company is shifting and changing over time, and you can see like we had a head of design hired at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, and that means design as a discipline has been introduced to a company, right? An established company that's like almost 10 years old. And I think that, the other thing I think to notice about this is that going from a startup, we have more kind of generalized roles, right? So we go from a place where everybody has all of their fingers in all of the pies and everyone kind of knows everything. to a place when we're growing and everything starts becoming a bit more specialist. So some now there's a few like blurred lines between roles. People are kind of stepping on each other's toes, and this is where kind of I think communication and stuff starts to play a vital role. On top of this, we're a customer-centric company, so everybody has the like customer's vision in mind, and it's great. I guess, like, yeah, we have this vision and mission and purpose, and it's all about like helping people get to where they need. But the thing is that every single department has a different shifting view of like who this customer is, right? So like marketing, for example, they have this view of a customer, and that's about what people, what we think people want, and they have these measures around acquisition and cost of acquisition and getting people to site, so they're very kind of conversion focused. We have product, and this is based around like what people are doing when on site, and so this is, yeah, again, that's not conversion, this is an old slide, that's about engagement. We have commercial, and they have this idea of a consumer, and so this is kind of based around like what people are doing like when they're buying certain products. And so their kind of metrics and measures are around like earning per click, so like how much money are people getting every single time they click, right? And obviously this is not an exhaustive list. We have like tech who have different views of the user based on like accessibility requirements. We have other departments, and obviously as a UX designer coming into this company, we're kind of being like, okay, so we've got these qual guys, we're going to run some studies with 5 users, and we're going to do this, and like we're going to make some personas and show you who your customer is. And actually these guys already know, or they think they know who their customer is, right? So they have like views of like 20,000 people on a survey and 2.5 million people doing things on site. And so for us to come in and be like, here are your 5 customers, it can cause a little bit of friction. And the thing is that, yeah, they do all have views, but they're all very different lenses to look at, and none of these things are like kind of fulfilled in isolation, right? And so we get into this question of how might we combine this expertise to like a bigger picture more than just the qual or quant, because it's not either or, it's an and we need to get this whole picture of the customer. Part 2. So the problem space, right? I'm sure most of you as designers will probably know this, it's been around since 2002, but I think this is a really nice example of where design was perceived to be when I started this organization. And obviously, like, I'm gonna use the pointer, obviously we have like all of these different levels, right? But when people who don't necessarily understand what UX is, and they don't know all of those different levels that we can affect, they can only see the surface. And so what you see is what you get, right? Design becomes like decoration of somebody else's vision. And so when we think about what this means at a project level, change was kind of, so say like any change on site is triggered by an action, right? So, or a thing. So customer feedback, for example, via Trustpilot, or like it might be talking to somebody, somebody will come up with an idea, or new business requirements, legal or compliance will come through and they have some new thing that must be added to the website, or numbers have gone up or numbers have gone down. So things will happen that come in and change. And these things come. And essentially they'll come through to somebody who has one of these lenses, right? We have like a marketing person or a product person or a tech person. And these kind of lenses are, this could be either one of those. This is completely interchangeable, but they come up with a solution based on these things. They were then saying, here's my solution, design, go and mock it up, give me my feature. And then design were then passing this feature over to engineering, and engineering were like, cool, you guys have done your due diligence, I'm just going to make all of this stuff that you've told me to make. And everyone's happy because they've got their feature, right? Their feature's been shipped. This guy's been like, cool, I've got this thing, you've made it better because you've mocked it up really well. And so I think we were having a whole lot of like miniature successes like this across our website. But what happens when like this starts happening in isolation with different lenses and different measures of success is that we have all of these pieces that are measured success individually, but none of them connect. And so what this looked like for us when I started at TotallyMoney is that we had this website of like many different websites, right? We had this concept of a brand that was a gradient, and like a gradient is not a brand, just saying. We had a customer journey, which you would assume that no design had taken place on, right? But there were designers working on this. I don't even need to say anything here, right? And the thing is that I think, like, and what's important to note here is that this fragmentation of our site, it's not happening because of a result of a lack of care. It's that everybody cares a lot, but they're caring in isolation with like loads of different measures of success. So individually, all of those projects were a success and they increased metrics and they turned numbers, but when we look at that whole view together, it doesn't fit. And obviously we as designers know how valuable design is. You Google anything and you're like, hey, return on investment, and like, look at all of this stuff, right? We're great, like we can add value to your business. But maybe to our stakeholders it's not so simple, because maybe they had it really good when design was at the surface, because they were able to have these like perfect ideas and these solutions, and then they were able to get perfectly realized and built and shipped. And so maybe by introducing UX, we're actually adding complexity, and we're adding perceived complexity to people who are used to kind of following this model, right? Because we're getting this solution, we're saying, dude, is this even the right problem? And they're like, oh, yes. But then we want to go away and we want to work on our double diamonds and our HCD processes and like all of our agile, like how many diagrams do we need to like show off what our design process is, right? And then we'll get it built and shipped, and hey, it looks nothing like the original solution. And so perhaps like for our stakeholders, right, this becomes something that's like a little bit like unknown, but also it results in longer time frames. There's a whole lot of like unknown solutions, and like essentially like really unhappy stakeholders. And I think this was the kind of tension that we came up against when I started here of like, yeah, this idea like the big, like the black box of design. And I think that created this kind of culture of like, just reskin it, you know, we don't have time for discovery, we just want a quick job, right? And can you just do the UX? Just do the UX. I mean, I've come up with the idea, just do the UX. And so I think design then becomes about like, how do we, you know, do that black box, and how do we include everybody in it, and how do we make sure people don't have solutions before we all have time together to kind of work together, right? It becomes about collaboration, so that at the end of the day we can come up with a solution together that everybody's aware of. And that's an emoji of a party guy having a party that hasn't come through. I was like, it's a release party, guys, it's a release party. So I think then, like for us, design has become like a dual track job. So we have to do the work, we have to do the UX, we have to try and figure out how we can go deeper than the surface and, you know, simplify and reduce this crazy fragmentation. But we also have to try and figure out how we shift the mindset of what designers throughout the company, because, you know, we have to not be seen at the surface, and this comes from like collaboration, bringing our stakeholders along with us. This comes from recognizing their skill sets and being able to like bring them along with us, and basically opening up this like black box of design, so it's not such a scary place, and people start to like understand the value of us opening it, right? So part 3. I think I'm all right for time. And if we think about this graph, So when I started, right, you know, there was this idea and we were trying to build engagement with design over time. So like, and I guess design at the bottom, like down here would be like, I don't know, do the UX, and up here is like, hey, I've got a problem, let's see if it's the right one. And over time it was like, okay, so we'll do a workshop and we've got this, you know, thing, and some people would come and would do an ideation session or do use the testing as a team sport, and you know, we're starting to build like this engagement, and it's going there. We're still getting, you know, bumps in the road, and people are like, you know, we're still having struggles. We're still having people who like don't want to come to our workshops because they just want to see the final solution so that they can just build the final solution because they're not seeing value in the process, etc. Hey, we want an A/B test, woohoo, workshop, all right. And then we had this design sprint, and we went from this place of like engagement, like slowly building, to like, oh my God, everyone was too engaged. And like all of a sudden, like everybody wanted like a piece of this, right? Everyone wanted a design sprint for absolutely everything. Like, hey guys, I've got this modal. I'm going to put this modal on the site. Can we have a design sprint? Like, and it's great because we know that this like appetite for collaboration is there. Like, that's really cool. We just have to try and direct it, the energy into the right place, because as we all know as designers, a design sprint is not like a one-size-fits-all box, right? Or a tool. It's like this kind of, there are many other tools in our like unicorn toolbox that we have to kind of engage people in the process, right? And I guess on reflection, this design sprint gave us all of these key elements of collaboration. So it gave us a cross-functional team, it had a shared vision with a belief and momentum and all of this care, and everybody was caring, you know, and people felt that their input and their expertise were heard. But I think most importantly, people had a really good, or people started to understand maybe why their idea wasn't like the right idea for that particular thing, or like why their idea didn't make the cut. And I think what has been happening previously was that people were holding on to these ideas or these solutions or these features that they'd had, and getting resentful that maybe that solution hadn't been shipped or hadn't been realized in the design process. So it kind of started opening up this like understanding of why decisions are made and how they're made, and actually it's okay that my decision didn't go forward because, oh, actually maybe this other one is better. So the reality of this is that not everybody wants a design sprint, but everybody wants the outcomes. I think people want to feel involved in the final output, that their expertise are valued, that there's a sense of momentum, achievement, progress, and see real users use the things that they've helped make. Like, they want to see inside this design black box, right? Yeah, so how can we direct this energy, this care into the right place? And this is an open question. But I think like for us, we're starting to think about how we might be more designing in the open. In the open as in within our organization, not within an industry and our peers, as Brad Frost would say. But like, I think there are times when we have to include people and bring other people's expertise on board. And there are also times when we need to be the experts and we need to maybe share those decisions we've made after we've made a thing. And I think there's this kind of like linear thing of like active versus passive, and if you're thinking about this in like terms of like a RACI, we've got like consulted versus informed. Because I think the thing is like collaboration doesn't have to happen with all of the people all of the time, but whenever we're like doing shit, we have to share this stuff. Like, we have to be able to either collaborate with people or do the work and then tell people about how we've done the work, why we've made the decisions. And I think that's probably maybe where we were falling down at the outset, right? A quick note. And so I guess like then we started thinking about this, you know, kind of thing, and like what kind of tools do we have, and how do we make it work? And I guess like the design workshop or the design sprint was in this kind of like very active area with a group of people. Maybe at the end of a project, we might do like a design show and tell, and we might share that to the whole company. We might like start doing like some general Slack updates. And I think basically, obviously, again, not an exhaustive list of things. But I think we need to start questioning ourselves and saying, like, who needs to know about this decision that was made? Is there a reason why it's only a select few? Why can't we share this with everybody in the company? At what stage of the project is that, and what stage do people need to know about these decisions or about the stuff that's been like worked on? And how active do particular people need to be? And again, I think we're trialing things like Eracy and stuff like that to identify who people are and how active they need to be. And I think we as designers need to lead the way with an effective structure, a structured and timely collabs. And so part 4, the future, is a utopian vision of strategic collaborative design, right? Sure. But we're not there yet. And like moving towards a culture of collaboration, it's an incremental process, and it is really hard. Every little helps. And I think like what we're kind of trialing, or like, you know, we can't come into an established company and be like, guys, everybody collaborate with me now. Just nobody likes that, right? So I think what we're getting to is a place where we're starting to have design advocates within the company. So by running a design sprint, for example, we had somebody in commercial got really excited about like the idea of how we're doing like a kickoff, and so she is now running kickoffs with her commercial team and bringing their expertise on board. Like, that's cool. I caught a developer the other day like talking about, he was advocating a design decision, like it was a feature that was going to take longer to build, but he was like, no guys, we have to build this because it resonated really well with users and user testing. And I was like, yes. And like, so we get these kind of like webs of influence, and like slowly we're starting to like trickle within the organization. Slowly, like we're definitely not there yet. But we're getting from a place where we are starting to affect below the surface and get into the strategy. And this is an actual JIRA ticket from when I started, and I was asked to reskin. Can you just do the UX? And we've got an actual roadmap item for next year that's like a discovery piece, right? That's cool. Like, this is fuzzy and abstract, and like this took a lot of work with my product owner. A lot of work. But also we're starting to affect the surface, and you might remember our buttons dilemma. And by kind of going through this like process and trying to affect like all of these different stages within the process, we're getting to a place where we're actually going to have a primary button. Like, I know that like that seems like a small thing, but like we couldn't have got to this place without having affected the company strategy and like starting to get there, right? So we're starting to not only affect the below layers, but we're starting to also impact back up to the surface. So, we all do, but none of us do, sorry. But I think like what I've learned from kind of reflecting on all of this is that what we do own as designers is the experience of a design department within an organization, right? So we have ownership of our own processes. We have the ability to build trust within the organization with like the rigor of our own approach. With the quality and the integrity of our work and the consistency and reliability of our own service. We can influence people along the way. It's great, right? So my last question is, how might we improve the experience of us? Yeah, thank you.